Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Naia Lax Updates podcast. I'm here with Tucker once again. How are you doing today, Tucker?
Doing pretty good. We're back in the virtual studio for another NAI rundown. I don't think we expected to be doing this many NAI podcasts prior to the season, but there's been so much news and juicy details and gossip around the school corner that we're here to cover it. We're here to talk about it. You guys have been killing the numbers on our views lately. So keep spreading that word. We appreciate all of you who reached out as well. We are enjoying this as much as you guys are. We get to be the publication essentially for NAI lacrosse. So we like to talk to you guys. I just said that we're the publication for NAI lacrosse. Well, now we got to fit into that one. Oh man. Okay. All right. Back to you.
All right. So we're gonna try and keep this one a little bit shorter. Just Tucker's got to get back to school tomorrow. I'm pretty sure. I gotta
get back to the high of 1 degree to Dubuque, Iowa.
I think I'll stay in Georgia where it's.
we're gonna move past the temperature real quickly and just keep going with the podcast now.
So we want to talk a little bit about the rosters that have been posted the last couple of days, especially teams that were kind of tournament teams last year. So I guess we'll just start with the team that won the championship last year, Reinhardt. I know there was a little bit of discussion about they lost a ton. I'll come out right away. I mean, Matt Webb, Connor Mills, Zane Anderson, Zach Penson, and just so many countless others, the Banks brothers. But I do want to have a little bit of optimism that I think Reinhardt's still going to be a pretty dang solid team. I mean, if you look at it, you're going to start with Dylan Bousquet at attack. Probably be a first-team All-American, I would guess again. As I tweeted out the other day, Jokien's offense runs a little bit different than Snow. Snow is really big on actually like feeding attackmen who would hang out behind cage, look for a cutting midi, whereas Jokien's going to want them to initiate the dodges primarily. So I think Bousquet is going to have a big year.
That's a different style altogether, just as far as game management goes. I mean, if you think about it, that it could play in the benefit of Reinhardt, because the Reinhardt of old that people were used to seeing with a consistent style is now not the Reinhardt of old. It's the Reinhardt of new.
Right, exactly. So I think it's going to be a lot more up-tempo. You're going to see it run through Bousquet and Wilkinson a lot. And you're going to see Cam at midfield doing his thing. And then the biggest thing, I think, is they got J.R. Sets back at faceoff.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. And this is more your wheelhouse, being an alum there and knowing a lot of these guys. I don't really know a lot. I know a few that transferred from Moval and moved over from our conference. But looking at, I think the most interesting thing is, you got 3 Moval guys now on the team, transfers. That's pretty big right away. Interesting piece there. Didn't actually realize the third was there. Very interesting. But more than anything, they're at 27 guys listed right now on their roster. I'm not one to say that you need a certain number of guys to win a game. It's going to come down to conditioning and how you guys like to play lacrosse. I think 15 to 20 is a pretty comfortable number. Some coaches would say double that. Is that pretty light compared to Reinhardt of past? I feel like I used to see 35-40 style rosters.
So it's been a little bit inconsistent is what I would say. I would say when I played there, it was typically around the 25 number. Then it seemed like in Snow's last year, maybe 2 years, it got up to around like mid-30s.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with that is Snow wasn't the best at subbing all the time. He really liked great coach, best coach I ever played for, best coach in NAI history.
This was that was the Snow, I promise I still love you line.
Yeah, right. I know. But Snow did not like Snow is not okay with a 20-5 victory. Like, he wants to get in there 20-0 and he expects if you come in the game off the bench, you better still hold that 0. So I think that's part of the reason. And then with him leaving, I think you kind of got to get as many guys back as you can.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I get, again, it's, 27 is a great number to have. I'm not gonna say it's not a great number to have. It's just interesting too, looking at how many of these guys are transfers. I don't know about you when you looked at the roster. This is an interesting piece. I see 0 freshmen on the roster right now, which is interesting. And there's a few unlisted as far as class goes, so I assume those are freshmen. But still, that's 3 guys on the roster, and there's a few sophomores and a lot of juniors.
Yeah, I think they have. I think 2 of the ones. I think there's 2 transfers. I know they got a transfer poll from Mars Hill, who should be pretty solid. He'll at least compete for playing time. I don't know what the deal is with that 3rd poll spot. And then I know one of the freshmen is Fisher Nuts' little brother. So he should be, if he's as good as Fisher is, I mean, he'll definitely play.
Yeah, and then you also have you have Matt Potvin from Moval is over there now. Kate Allison was also at Moval over there now. Obviously Wilkinson from Moval is over there now. Titus has been there for a while from Moval over there now. I'm just looking through this on the mass exodus of the Midwest is very interesting. No, but you bring up a good point that there could be a few freshmen on there kind of unlisted right now as well. That's interesting. I'm excited to watch Mo, and I'm excited to watch Reinhardt simply because they have a bit of a question mark on them right now. I think you and I talk about it so much, and we can look at a roster and look at how many guys are on the roster, who's in the roster, and try to predict. But with a totally new coach, a totally new style, a totally new era after Snow being there for so long, I think Reinhardt's kind of the most unpredictable team out there this year. I mean, players can only do so much. That's all I'm going to say. Like the coaching style goes a long ways. And it's also not only that, it's like in the NFL where you have a new coach come in, you have a whole new personality. The game is different. The atmosphere is different. And we don't know right now what that is necessarily. But I think that's why they're the biggest question mark in my mind. I'm excited to watch Reinhardt.
Yeah, me too. And one final thought on them is I think with them probably going a little bit more up tempo, that'll be really big having Tyler Queen and Cage there, because if anybody watched the Lourdes last year, he was probably the most exciting player in the country. Just I loved anytime he would make a save. Just what is this kid going to do? Is he going coast to coast? What's he going to do next?
That's true, and that brings up. We'll touch on Lourdes a little bit here later on, but that's again. There's another Midwest exodus out of the Midwest over to Reinhardt. So I've found the most interesting thing of this year coming into Moval, looking at their kind of like their transfer portal, how many guys they're pulling from other NAI schools. That's really interesting to me, especially with Snow leaving. These guys still deciding to go there regardless. I mean, it says a lot to the program. And then Reinhardt opens the season up against Shorter Wednesday, January 26th in Rome, Georgia at Shorter. And then they pick up a game against Auburn University, their MCLA team. Auburn's MCLA team is no slouch. They are quite good, not going to lie. And then Sunday, the 30th as well, same day, back-to-back games. They play LaGrange College. Both these games are happening in LaGrange, Georgia. So 3 games inside of January, 3 games several weeks away. We get to watch Reinhardt lacrosse very soon here. How excited are you for that? Like that lacrosse is going to be back at the NAI level.
Yeah, I'm definitely really excited. I mean, I'm hopeful they'll be streamed is what I will say. I mean,
good point. I mean, I think Auburn's MCLA team, they do a pretty good job on their little media side of things. So I would actually enjoy seeing an Auburn Reinhardt matchup. Like yeah. I like those kind of, mix up games.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess moving on, next roster I wanted to cover was probably, do you want to do Cumberlands first or CC?
We can do Cumberlands. Also, I wanted to add one more thing on Reinhardt. It's interesting that they're playing so many out of NAI games this year. That's weird. So they got Auburn, LaGrange, and Georgia Tech all back to back to back. And
Yeah,
from what I understand, Georgia Tech is not very bad at all.
that'll be kind of a grudge match. They have a bit of a history going back, those two, Reinhardt and Georgia Tech, the past couple of seasons.
There you go.
One thing I'll say about the Reinhardt schedule is they wanted to get a couple more WAC teams to come down to Georgia, but they were
Yeah.
told budget this year. So it seems like a lot of the Southern teams wanted some of the Northern teams to come down kind of around that spring break this year. And I don't know if it's a COVID thing or just budgeting thing, but
Yeah, and they're headed to Spalding University, which is a Division III program, but they're not playing Spalding. They're playing Madonna at Spalding in Louisville, Kentucky. So that's an interesting note as well. Probably budget related, meeting in the middle, shorter drive for both universities. But actually, Spalding is a brand new field as well in Louisville, so that's kind of cool.
yeah, for sure. So do you say Cumberland's next?
Yeah, let's dive into Cumberlands, and this is one that you're going to know a lot about as well, as you begin to discuss the Cumberlands of now. Not that much has changed there. I'm going to pull up their schedule as well.
Yeah, no, Cumberland should still be another one of these top 5 programs for sure, maybe even better. Looking at their attack, it'll start with Fogarty and Crouch putting up big numbers once again. You got Vanover returning. I think he kind of rotated between attack and midfield. I kind of liked him better towards the end of the year at attack. So they really had one of the best attack units. And then his younger brother's on the team playing midfield. So that'll be a big addition as well. Sorry, knocking the cat on the couch. But yes, that'll be helpful. You have the 2 goalies back from last year. Pork Chop back from his leg injury. I've heard he's doing very well. So assuming
he's active, he's active in the Twitterverse. We can confirm that.
Yeah, so I mean, he's nice and healthy. That'll be a big welcome back for him. The one thing I think we spoke on a couple weeks back was it looked like they lost all 3 defensemen. So that's going to be tough bringing in early into the year. But I still have high expectations for Cumberlands for sure.
Yeah, I do too. Interesting kind of pull here. Just looking through the roster, Brecken Sharkey. Brecken, you have a sick name, man. Brecken Sharkey. That's a cool name. I'm shouting him out specifically because he's from my great state of Ohio. He went to Loveland High School, traditionally a pretty good program there. So actually interesting. I'm looking just at the guys in the roster where they're from and high schools. So that's an addition at midfield that I would like to see. I think that'll be pretty good. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking through to see what new addition wise, if there's anybody kind of notable, for lack of better terms, on there. I love these roster picks, Cumberlands. You guys, I like the high enthusiasm in some of them, and then the absolutely zero enthusiasm in other pictures. We can appreciate that style there. I don't numbers wise, they seem to be pretty close to where they were last year. I don't see anything too different, to be honest with you. A fair amount of freshmen, like to see that you see guys coming in, beginning to start the next chapter of Cumberlands. Actually, a pretty good amount of freshmen, to be honest with you. So excited to see that as well. How are you feeling about Cumberlands as a whole, where they sit with this roster right now, knowing that we don't know enough about Reinhardt right now? They're a big question mark. I feel like Cumberlands might return kind of a sense of consistency in the conference. You know, they have their style still in place, very well funded, very well supported program. Kind of an interesting piece there.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to ask you at some point during the show, once we cover kind of all the rosters, how you're feeling about the main ones. But so we're still waiting on kind of easier to post their roster. We think they lost some pretty crucial pieces on offense, but I'm not 100% confirmed yet. Reached out to a couple people, and it's kind of radio silence. I don't know if that's intentional or not. So that'll be something to keep an eye on the next couple of days. But Cumberland should be pretty solid. They added Nick Kubik at faceoff, so I think that'll help, because the one problem I will say they had last year is Sess was just way too much at the faceoff for them during that matchup. So Kubik being help at least a little bit in that. It'll be very interesting because these teams have the exact opposite problems. Reinhardt lost a lot on offense. Cumberlands lost a lot on defense. So that head-to-head matchup comes down to what I think. The game is in Waleska. So it's at Reinhardt. And then the AAC tournament is at Reinhardt again this year as well. So I think that could be big for both of those.
Good point. Good point. I do think, not to get way ahead of ourselves, but AAC, I think those are two powerhouses. One, we kind of know what to expect style wise. One, we think we know what to expect style wise, which is kind of interesting. Looking at their schedule too, real quick here. Those of you listening, as we see rosters drop, we will address them on each show accordingly. Obviously, there'll be more next week as well. And as we discuss rosters, we're also kind of going to discuss scheduling a little bit, just to tie them all together so every team gets a fair shout out. I will say, looking right now at the schedule for Cumberlands, they have 12 games. It's a fair number to have. A lot of schools now, due to COVID, are scheduling minimum, just conference requirements. Starting to see more of that. I feel like traditionally we would have seen more games from Cumberlands, and maybe games earlier, but either way, they start out February 20th. They're pushing that kind of start of March deadline. That's kind of interesting for Cumberlands, first off. But February 20th, they open up at home against Weber. That's a great opener all around. That'll be an exciting game to watch. Two teams fresh there. 5 days later, they have Concordia at home. And 3 days after that, they have Dearborn at home. So they actually open up with 5 home games in a row. They are only away for 4 games.
Yeah, that'll definitely.
That's desirable.
Yeah, I mean, especially as we talked about last time, hardest places to play. Cumberland is definitely one of those with that home field crowd they got there. So
very much so. Okay, moving right along. I guess we can talk a little bit about Lourdes here a little bit. This was not one, guys, full disclosure, that we had kind of pre-planned. This was just one that I had recently looked at, kind of keep tabs on them just being in state half the year. Looking at their roster, they actually return a whole lot more than I would have expected, and then added some. Listed right now on their roster, if this is correct, I count 38 guys. That is a very deep roster. Very, very good numbers, quite a few freshmen. So you can tell that recruiting was going well. I see 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 freshmen of a roster of 38. That is very impressive looking numbers wise. Again, can't address any of these guys specifically just because I don't know reputation wise. I haven't played Lourdes since freshman year. A lot of the faces have changed since then in 3 years. But again, a good, well-rounded roster. I always look at where the players are from. A good mix of Ohio and around the country. I'm seeing, especially in their freshman class, they are really mixing it up. I mean, the top freshman on their list right here is from Vero Beach, Florida. So they're drawing a pretty good amount to right outside Toledo, Ohio. You gotta love that. How do you feel like? And I feel like Lourdes is one of those teams that not that we haven't heard a lot from them recently, but kind of older era, big powerhouse, you think, in the WAC. Now it's not that they have gotten worse or any better. They're just kind of there. Where do you feel like they fit in the WAC this year? Obviously, we don't know too much of what to expect from Dearborn or Madonna. There's a lot of question marks in the WAC.
Yeah, the WAC's one where we have quite a few new coaches. I would probably put Lourdes somewhere near the upper middle. I mean, I still think Indiana Tech probably better than them based on what we know last year.
Agreed.
Aquinas, you'd probably put ahead of them just preseason, and then Concordia as well. So it'd probably be number 4 in my WAC list going off. And I don't mean any disrespect. Lourdes had a great season last year. I mean,
true.
It really comes down to Aquinas, Lourdes, and Concordia. I think we're like 8, 9, and 10 in the final poll. So, I mean, any one of them is interchangeable. You'll have Lawrence back this year. Siena Heights off a shortened season. So, I mean,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is I think the WAC probably has the biggest surprise element of any conference this year just because of how many teams are returning, playing more games now, healthier rosters. I mean, I'm looking at last year, Lourdes' kind of record and their outline. Um, Beat Michigan Dearborn by 2 goals. Can almost expect that to be a close game again. That makes sense in my mind. They beat Aquinas 1-0. This
I think
is
that was
interesting. Do you know this? It says that they won, right? It says that on the schedule from last year, they beat Aquinas 1-0. In parentheses, says they lost 11-10 in overtime, but then Aquinas forfeited. I don't know anything about that, but I have a lot of questions on that.
that's a very interesting one. We'll definitely do some digging.
I have not seen. I didn't notice that last year. This would have been
Yeah, I didn't know that.
April of last year at Aquinas. Says they forfeited after Aquinas beat them in overtime. Okay. All right. Anyway, strange. Any last thoughts on Lourdes?
They returned their best player, I think Pazat. I think that's his name. He had a great end of the year run last year. The one thing I would look at is who's their new goalie with Queen going to Reinhardt.
It's a good point.
Well, maybe they got a good freshman. Maybe they had a backup last year who played a good bit. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but those are 2 things I would look to watch for.
Yeah, I'm seeing as of right now 1 goalkeeper freshman listed from Ada, Michigan. Another freshman goalkeeper from Hudsonville, Michigan. Another goalkeeper freshman as well from Stockton, California. So three of the 15 or whatever freshmen that I had said are goalkeepers. All 3 of their goalkeepers this year are freshmen. That's very interesting to see. I almost would have expected like 1 transfer and 2 freshmen. But no, that's great. They can mold all 3 in a way they want in a playing style. You have 3 guys coming through the same system, consistent knowledge of the game from a team perspective. Yanarelli is an awesome coach. All the respect to him. He's built a great program and continue to build a great program. One of my lifelong friends and good buddy of mine, Cody Carson, is their grad assistant. So always excited to see Cody play, or Cody coach now. I used to, grew up watching Cody play at Kent State. What up, Cody? But no, excited to see Lourdes. And actually, I think more than anything, excited to see just how the WAC pans out. Because half the conference, we know what's going on. Other half, it is like complete darkness, and we will find out the first game on a live stream.
Yeah, definitely. And then I guess if you want to stick with the WAC, maybe do Concordia next.
Yeah, we can pull up Concordia. Concordia, good numbers again. They seem to be kind of sitting where they've always been number wise. I don't see anything too different with them. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, Concordia is in Ann Arbor, right outside Ann Arbor, I guess we should say, off the highway. It's a great place to draw people. You're in a good part of Michigan with a lot of high school lacrosse. You guarantee you can build out most of your roster from Michigan, if not Ohio. So again, we talk about location-based recruiting affecting rosters. I'm looking at this roster right now, and it has to be 98% Michigan, which is very interesting to see. That also affects guys getting together in the offseason, playing together. I think the biggest pickup that we're seeing right now from a freshman perspective, you and I had talked about this. Nick Bradford joins the Cardinals at faceoff, and he is from Belleville, Michigan, but is listed as transferring from Onondaga. So that's a very interesting move right there alone. How do you think that a strong faceoff perspective will affect Concordia? Because they've always had good faceoff guys, like no knocks against them at all. They've always had good, consistent faceoff guys. But if they have a guy who is just completely dominant and doesn't let the ball on the other side of the field, I feel like that changes a lot.
Yeah, it definitely does. And if you look at the one team they really struggled with last year, it was Indiana Tech. Kind of the pressure that Indiana Tech could build, sometimes a little bit of the game as well, with Indiana Tech having a pretty solid face-off guy as well. So if he's coming in and he's winning those draws cleanly, getting a full head of steam, that can help kind of avoid that pressure from Indiana Tech.
Yeah, I agree. I think more than anything, every time I've played Concordia, they've been really good. My experience being recruited there originally was really great. I have a lot of respect for the university and what goes on there. But I think that their push to get more and more and more guys from in Michigan, and then clearly seeing this kid who was at Onondaga but is from Michigan, you can see there's a good link there in drawing guys from other schools or transferring from community colleges or JUCOs. I think them adding just another piece in their moving part system, they're going to be dominant. But I agree with you. I think especially when they're facing teams like Indiana Tech and what we can expect Aquinas to be like, having somebody who's very strong at the face-off X will be more than important in my mind.
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree on that one.
Yeah, looking at their schedule here, they have okay, that's interesting. There we go. And there's our second surprise on the podcast for today. They have 7 games listed on their roster.
So is that teams are 8?
They are playing
conference only, maybe?
No, they open up with 2 non-conference. They open up at Ambrose, which is going to be probably in the Ambrose Dome, something like that. I'll go try to watch that game. And then they play Westcliff.
Okay.
So they're only playing 3. There's only 5 conference games listed for Concordia this year.
Okay, so we can at one of 2 ways, one of which is a huge red flag to me.
Yeah.
And everything that happened last year with COVID. I would hope it's just an incomplete schedule, kind of something that's a work. But
that's the thing is Concordia, their SID has always been really good about having complete stuff up there on the site. That's what's more concerning is coming from a school like Concordia, only seeing 5 conference teams listed and a 7-game schedule. I think we are out of the loop on something. Maybe the WAC lowered their requirements for conference play. That's possible. Maybe they split up the conference into 2 regions to minimize travel and COVID exposure. That's possible. The WAC definitely was kind of the one to respond to the COVID issues first last time around, I feel like. And we saw a lot of the schools in Michigan lessen their schedule due to COVID issues. So the fact that we're seeing that from a WAC team in Michigan, a lower amount of schedule, we can only draw conclusions that yes, it's an incomplete schedule on the website, or we are missing something very big and we might have just discovered what that is. We don't know yet. Again, this is hearsay. Okay. Especially interested in not seeing a Lawrence Tech or an Indiana Tech on that roster or on that schedule.
I wouldn't look too much into the Indiana Tech one. Because that's one of the teams I was reaching out to for a roster. And I was told that they hadn't posted the roster yet, but they said there's no surprises coming. Everything's good. In fact, everything that you would hope for and more. So
I mean, props to them for just coming out with that. I like that. I am quickly referencing other WAC schedules to see if we are onto something. Yes, we are onto something. We are definitely onto something. Okay, so folks, I am now looking at Lawrence Tech's roster, or Lawrence Tech's schedule. They are playing 7 games as well, and 5 of those games are conference games. Okay, so looking at Lawrence Tech, they open up at Weber, then they go to Reinhardt, and then they play 5 conference games, 3 of which are different teams than Concordia. So something's going on, man. Let's just do a quick search. Michigan Dearborn. If 7 games on 2 schedules back to back in the same conference screams that there maybe is a game minimum going or game maximum going on at 7 games. That is very strange. Can we get 7 games a third time with Dearborn? Here we go. No. Dearborn is playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 games.
Okay, so it's just got to be a couple hiccups or something not updated, something weird.
I mean, I can check. I'm gonna, for the sake of the investigative journalism going on this podcast repetitively, I think I owe the listeners a quick search here so they don't have to do the search themselves. Let's check out Aquinas. No, Aquinas has a lot of games listed. The only thing I can think, and this is very possible, is that the cities that Lawrence Tech and Concordia Ann Arbor are playing in have athletic restrictions. That's the only thing I can think of, because the fact that we found it on 2 rosters, and I don't think we're going to see that in Indiana Tech specifically, because they're in a completely different, they're in a different state. But the fact that we found that on 2 teams so close together, both with good roster numbers, I lean that there's more reason to that than just lack of games on the schedule. And the same thing, again, Indiana Tech, totally packed schedule. It's possible that a certain area of Michigan is only playing certain games. That's the only thing I could think of. Maybe Madonna's the same way. Let's see.
This is the most live breaking thing we've had.
I'm looking this up as we go, guys. No. Okay, so we are on to something, and it's interesting. Madonna has tons of games, yet Lawrence Tech and Concordia both has 7 games, and only 5 of those games are conference. 2 of those games are out of conference, and they are early games. There is something going on in the Michigan WAC NAI sphere. If you know what it is, please clue us in. Send a message, tweet, or something, because I'm very curious as to why 2 teams that we expect a lot from are only playing 7 games, because that's not conference requirement. So are they not competing at a conference level? Aha, that's what else we can check. Okay, so let's just look. Oh, okay. All right, so we are onto something. Neither Concordia or Lawrence Tech has playoff dates for conference listed on their rosters, and they traditionally do. They always have the date circled as WAC conference. Neither of them have conference dates on their rosters.
Yeah, that's very interesting as well.
And I should also add that both schedules are going through the middle and end of April. So it's not like there's just games missing towards the end. There's a full slate of games through March and April, but there's only 7. Suspension from the conference, violation of rules. What do we think? I don't know. That was out there. I'm sorry, Concordia fans. I know. Gosh. Anyway, that's bizarre. We just got a little caught up there. Continue. What do we have next on the docket?
Let's move along to maybe CC's roster, Columbia.
Okay, Columbia's roster. Do you have it pulled up? I will pull it up. I got it. Okay, you open up. Give us your thoughts on Columbia's roster real quick.
Yeah, so Columbia is kind of in an interesting spot where they almost had a perfect season last year, perfect through the regular season, got their first KCAC regular season and conference tournament championship, I believe. And then it kind of went out the window in the first round of the Nationals. So looking to kind of rebuild from there. And the one thing that kind of surprised me is I thought building off of that championship run, at least conference wise, that a lot of the year guys would take the extra COVID year, but it seems like almost none of them did. So that was one thing that caught me off guard. They do still bring back some quality pieces. John Thomas, Perrott, I believe is the other one's name. Let me pull something up real quick.
Yeah, again, I can kind of add they return a lot of their guys, and I think even more than that, they return a lot of their guys, but they also fill in a lot of spots that went missing. And I do think there's a reason for a lot of these guys not taking COVID 5th years. My take and understanding on a lot of KCAC kids is they are going back to their state schools for grad school or whatever it may be. or they're just checking out. They're kind of done with lacrosse by their 5th year. That seems to be more consistent across the KCAC than a lot of the other conferences, which is interesting. And we're also seeing a lot of KCAC kids transfer to warmer temperatures for their 5th year, if there's an interested major at that place as well. I think that's kind of an interesting take as well. Looking at this roster at names, Ethan Houston moves over from Moval to Columbia, along with Cooper Bryant. Cooper's coming over from Moval to Columbia. There's another interesting thing right there.
They returned Doran. I didn't mention that earlier.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Joseph Reed transferring from Lynn University in an attack. So that attack line should be pretty stacked. I do think they graduated. They may have went
Quite
3
a few.
for graduating goalies, which is something that's very unusual. You kind of figure one of them might redshirt or something.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing about Columbia too is regardless of roster size or number of guys in a roster or who's in the roster, I think their coaching staff does such a good job setting an atmosphere and also a set of expectations for their team, that I think regardless of who was on the team or how many guys are on the team, we're still going to see the Columbia that we've seen year in, year out, because they've not been around for very long, but they get stronger and stronger and stronger and more consistent every year as well.
Yeah, definitely. And as a KCAC player, how you are, I'm wondering, do you see them as the team to beat this year?
I do. And, a few people have not my friends at Ambrose, but a few people outside have started to mention thoughts on Ambrose. And I really feel like it's coming down to Columbia and Ambrose, with the possibility of interchangeable with William Penn and Benedictine. Benedictine has a pretty deep roster this time around. William Penn has a deep roster. How many guys are going to get injured in the regular season? However, I think the two powerhouse teams in the KCAC right now that are just hard to beat in well-run systems are St. Ambrose and Columbia. I personally, from a player perspective, always see Columbia as the team to beat. Again, well-rounded program, very well coached, well put together. They put out an energy that you want to match. That's kind of just Columbia's style, and they do it year in, year out. I'm even looking at their schedule right now, and they put a slate together it's hard to deny. It's a hard slate. They open up at Quincy. Quincy's D2. They're not a very good D2, for lack of better terms. They're going to not have any issue at all with Quincy. I can tell you that right now. And then they play Aquinas, Tennessee Wesleyan, and Cumberlands. So they are asking for trial by fire early. Not surprised at all by that from Columbia.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. You said Aquinas, Cumberland, Tennessee Wesleyan.
Yep.
Yeah. 3 teams you figure will at least be in the top 12. I mean, 2 of those will definitely be top 10. One, Tennessee Wesleyan, probably going to start just outside. They'll be in the receiving vote. I had to guess. Maybe they'll be 9 or 10, but I would somewhere.
Watch what you say now. Remember, whoa.
Yeah. But it'll be an interesting early 3 games. If you go 2-1 in that, would you be happy if you're CC, or do you think you have to win all 3 to be sitting comfortable?
I think 2-1 would be solid. I think they can expect nothing less than 2-1. If their expectations are below 2-1 out of those 3 games, you're in a tough spot, especially when it comes down to nationals rankings. That's kind of the biggest thing in my mind that you have to be careful with, is if you go 2-1, that's fine. But if you were to go 1-2, you're in a tough spot.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible.
I don't know. Again, I specifically, I think that Columbia and Tennessee Wesleyan will be a pretty good matchup. I think those 2 teams alone, from what I know about the programs, those 2, I think, will match up probably the closest neck and neck, and it'll be an even game. The other games, I don't know what to expect from. That's just honesty. But I know that Columbia and Tennessee Wesleyan are both consistent programs with great track records. So that, in my mind, makes a lot of sense, just off the top of my head.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I do remember about Columbia's roster is, if you look at like points scored from last year, they're returning, I think, 5 guys who had at least 15 points. And I think they have 3 or 4 that are returning who are like over 40. So, I mean, they're definitely going to be a balanced offense. 4 or 5 guys who can put the ball in the net consistently. So, offense is still.
We should also add, this is totally off the cuff, but on the wax side, Cleary returns. They're having a season. They have quite a few guys in their roster. I'm not going to lie to you. They have a pretty sizable roster and a whole lot of freshmen, and they're building something, and they appear to be playing quite a few games.
Everyone that's been past couple years, because they'll have a season and then they won't, and then they'll have a season, do conference games.
We played them last the COVID year that occurred, so we played them last, and the last time they even played, what it might have been the game against us would have been their last game actually. Would have been 2020, my sophomore year. So they haven't been playing for at least a full season. I know that. They were just really low in numbers. Things weren't going well for them. Good to see that they have a pretty decent roster back and a schedule set.
I think they.
What was that?
I think they may have gotten a new coach.
They did. They did get a new coach, and that's something that we can address obviously later on. I was just thinking off the top of my head of teams that play KCAC teams regularly that are kind of new and off of that. Anyway, okay, I'll close the Cleary and Whack chapter. I promise. Columbia, any last thoughts? I expect nothing but consistency from their program again.
Oh yeah, I mean, I definitely see them making a tournament again. I'd say that's pretty much a lock. I guess not so much on the Columbia front, but I guess from what you've seen of these rosters so far, if you had to maybe rank them like the top 3, 1 through 3, what are you thinking?
I don't have Reinhardt in top 3. Say it right now. Just on size, new players, old players, a mixture. I got Columbia in the top 3, no specific order. I got Columbia up there. Actually, surprise here, I got Weber up there. We were looking at the roster, and it's very deep, and a lot of good players in that team. So I got Weber in the top 3 on rosters that are out right now. And the third in that rodeo, I'm going to say Indiana Tech. And not that I've seen it yet, but I know kind of what to expect from them. But cross that out. My third that I have seen, Cumberlands. There you go. That's not in any specific order. It's probably not knowledgeable at all, listeners. But from the rosters that we have looked at so far, that's my 3. Where are you at?
Yeah, so I would probably – we haven't seen Indiana Tech, but obviously if I had seen that, it would make there for sure. That'd probably be my preseason number 1 team right now, just from what I'm hearing. I think I definitely have Columbia in there, just the offensive firepower. Probably Cumberlands, and then I actually do have Reinhardt in there. Just I think returning 5 out of 6 players on the defense. You lose one goalie, you get another all-conference transfer in. They got the D2 transfer poll.
True.
Defense should still be – I would expect Reinhardt to have a top 3 defense. The question is, last year their offense was like 1 or 2 in stats. If they can have a top 3 defense and a top 5 to 6 offense, it would still be pretty good. Where you would get into a little bit of trouble is if you have a top 5 defense and then like a 15th offense, something like that.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
Top of my head, was very impressed with what Concordia added as well. So probably throw them in there, and that's in no specific order. Just kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think those rosters stand out in comparison as well. I think that's a big part of it. Kind of a question here coming in. Which teams being built now will compete for a championship in 3 to 4 years? Let's just say teams that have existed for 2 years or less, or are just now coming into fruition. Who are your 2 teams off the top of your head that are new teams that you expect to see pretty quick development from?
So I would say Weber is definitely getting there. Just the roster is getting insane where it seems like they're probably going to have the deepest roster year in and year out.
Mm-hmm.
To watch there is if they can keep the coaching staff together the whole time, that's a big one. And then I think we were talking pre-show. It looks like they didn't retain as many guys as we thought they would, but they reloaded anything they lost. So that'll be one. And then William Penn as well out of the KCAC. They're just kind of stacking it up. And then the young talent's kind of getting older. It seems like the young talent's all juniors now. So the next couple of years, they should be very solid.
Ouch. Well, okay, let's see what else we got. I'm thinking, what is William Penn on? 3 seasons now? I want to say 2 or 3. 3. Or 3. Or is this going on 4? I don't know. I think this is going on 4. Whatever. Anyway, they're a new team. William Penn absolutely would be up there simply because they're carrying the roster. That's the first thing right there. They are in a non-traditional lacrosse area. They have very little high school lacrosse around them, if any, because I live in Iowa. They are not recruiting people from 5 miles away, 15 miles away. They're recruiting guys from 300 miles away. And that's a testament to the city that William Penn is located in, Oskaloosa, Iowa. It's a great city, no knock on it at all, but it's not your lacrosse hotbed. It's not going to specifically attract lacrosse players. There's going to be a sell involved, and William Penn's doing a great job at that. I would say William Penn is in one of those expansion teams, but the 2 real new expansion teams in my mind that I expect nothing but good things from. Number 1, Westcliff, Irvine, California. Westcliff, if it's done correctly and recruited correctly, could be a powerhouse. And at the same time, they're in a position where they could compete against a lot of very quality MCLA teams in Cal Berkeley, in any of those teams out west. I mean, they're in a good spot to put together a schedule mixed of NAI and MCLA. From what I can understand about the university, it's very appealing. It's got a great looking campus. It's a lot of online classwork. It's a lot of athletics. That's very appealing alone. And you're in California weather, in a pretty good part of California. So that being said, location draw alone, I think they're going to get some talent out there at Westcliff and Irvine. Expect to see nothing but good things from them. Multnomah, or whatever it's called, I can't pronounce it correctly again. It is in Oregon, outside of Portland, I believe. That's a question mark for me right now. Again, it's an area where it actually has pretty good high school lacrosse in the area. Same as Westcliff. There's high school lacrosse in both areas. However, I think Westcliff will probably recruit more talent from areas of snow, colder weather to go to California as a destination. Oregon, I think that they could recruit a lot of guys from in-state and the Pacific Northwest. Curious to see what happens there. And lastly, Weber, I think any team that positions themselves with a field next to the ocean is probably going to do pretty well recruiting, especially with the Canadian audience and us in Ohio and New York and cold weather places. So again, we look at 3 of those teams and 2 of them are specifically location based. That location will help them a lot. So Westcliff and Weber and William Penn's in the mix there. Those are kind of my 3. Multnomah, I don't know enough about the program yet. Once we find out more, we can make the judgment, but those are my 3 as of right now. And I should add, we don't know who's showing up in the NAI next year. There's rumors of teams. There may be a team in New York. We don't know. Like, it's up for grabs right now. We have no idea. It's also based on universities' cost of enrollment to the NCAA versus the NAI. We're seeing a lot more universities now go the NAI route. We don't know what's going to happen. End of story. I'm rambling. Okay. What other questions do we have that need to be answered? Let's see.
Number 1 was which teams have fallen off in the past kind of like 2 to 3 years.
And I hate this question. I hate it. This is tough, man. You go first. I feel bad. Like, preface, if we say your team, it is nothing against you guys. We're simply basing this on stats and data. We're sure you're amazing people growing the game. So, John, take it away.
So as he said, this is a tough question, but y'all come to us for the tough answers, so we got to deliver. And I'm looking at the state of Missouri, guys. Two
Wow.
of y'all, Missouri Baptist, Missouri Valley. When I played, two of the top 5 teams easily every year, and it's fallen on hard times. And specifically, I think a little bit recruiting wise, definitely retention and coach retention for players and coaches on the Missouri Valley side. And I think Missouri Valley, like this may catch some people off guard. I think they actually did more this offseason than potentially even Missouri Baptist to secure that just by getting a coach who loves Missouri Valley and will be there for the next probably 5 to 10 years easily.
What up, Hines? Yeah, that was my comment.
Yeah. Outside of those state of Missouri, I guess you could go to Lourdes, but I think they've got it back on track. They made the national tournament this year. Lawrence Tech maybe a little bit, but it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think Lawrence Tech and Dearborn, U of M Dearborn obviously struggled with being able to play lacrosse because their university during COVID times. Same thing with Lawrence Tech. Administration obviously affects athletics, health protocol affects athletics. Those are 2 teams we saw the most heavily affected, I feel like, from it. I feel like it'd be wrong to say that they just kind of fell off the face of the earth. However, I feel like Dearborn at times has showed signs of that prior to COVID happening. I think Dearborn's in a strange position that they're an affiliate school of University of Michigan. They wear the same logo with tiny letters that say Dearborn underneath. It's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure how they recruit in state, and they explain that we're pretty much a satellite school of Dearborn or of U of M. So I'm not sure how that all works, and I'm not sure, their reputation in Michigan. So I don't want to necessarily fell off. I agree with your 2 Missouri kind of accusations there. I think from playing Missouri Baptist, I think they've had their ups and downs. I feel like this is going to be a strong year for them. But they've kind of floated on the edge there for a while. Missouri Valley, without question, 100%. Excited to see Hines turn that around, but they obviously had a coach who left. They had an interim coach. That interim coach was kind of like, I'm here. And then he just left. So that's a hard thing. They lost a lot of guys to transferring, as we've seen on the rosters just in this episode. But they got hit hard by the transfer portal, you could say. Feel for them because they were a powerhouse 2.5 years ago. I think they are probably the team in the NAI who has seen that switch the quickest. But that being said, I think under the right leadership and with the right moves being made, that can be reversed very quickly.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know what else we got. I don't. I'm trying to think of things that people have said that are important to bring up.
Another fan question they were asking about the Reinhardt culture, and then if Yelkin can kind of keep the same culture that Snow had. What are your thoughts from the outside looking in on that one?
Outside looking in, I don't think you can match Snow. And that's not a knock against Yelkin at all. That's not a knock against anybody. I don't think any coach should be expected to match another coach's personality, style, anything. Every coach out there, just like every player, should have their own style, their own set of expectations, and their own culture they bring to a team. So I think to say, is that guy going to bring Snow's culture back? Is he going to continue on? No, not a chance. It's going to be different, hopefully for the better. We see signs for the better. But that being said, when a coach leaves, it's like a tree is uprooted. The coach comes in, that tree has been planted. However you water it, however you work with your players on and off the field is how that tree will grow, is how that program will grow. Does Yelkin step into a team with a much better foundation than some other teams? Absolutely. Will that affect his coaching style and bringing in maybe some of the old personality? Absolutely. But I think nonetheless, we should only hope to expect a totally different Reinhardt. Simply for the sake of Yelkin in his NAI coaching career. I'm excited to see what he brings in. I'm excited that Snow's, at Coker. I'm excited to see what he does at the D2 level at Coker. No knock against him either. I think that every coach should have their own style, their own personality, and their own assets they bring to the team. So that's my question. My answer, no way he brings in Snow's style and persona. No way.
Yeah, and I guess from my perspective, so I wouldn't say from an insider's perspective as much because I don't really hang out around the program as much as I used to when I was there. Obviously, but I still know a good bit about it, even though a lot of my buddies have graduated now. I'd say the one thing I'd noticed about the roster is a lot of the leaders have left in the last couple of years. So more so than coming down to even just Yelkin being there, they really need the last couple remaining seniors, upperclassmen, to step up and make sure that something similar is in place. Because the one thing I will say is Yelkin's a great guy. I'd say maybe a little bit more of a player's coach. Things are a little bit more relaxing. Seems a little bit less kind of hot at all times like Snow. But I don't know. That's the big difference I've seen so far. But I think they got it under control.
Agreed. I think that's a good question to close on. Time got away from me. We were doing some investigative journalism on the WAC.
30 minutes.
A lot of stuff conspired. How have we been on here for an hour plus? Yeah.
Probably.
Wow. Impressive. Okay, guys. Apparently bringing you long form content is not an issue for us, as we've seen from past episodes. And we should also say, looking at the YouTube analytics, the watch time and the listens time is pretty high up there. Like, you guys are listening to a lot of what we say. I'm sorry for polluting your mind like that. My apologies in advance. You're going to hear our words every time you watch NAI lacrosse now, but nonetheless, excited to sit down with you guys again and fill your head with more NAI lacrosse nonsense that we put importance on. Any closing thoughts? Anything you're looking forward to?
I'm just glad I wasn't the one rambling this time. Usually I feel like it's me. So
I'm just thinking about that 10-hour drive through the freezing snow, and then I'll hit Indianapolis where they're having the national championship game for football, and I'm going to hit that traffic. I just know it right now. And then I'll arrive back in Antarctica. It'll get back to the high 30s within the week, but it's Antarctica right now. Dubuque, Iowa, along the Mississippi.
You stop in, you find a scalper, you go to the game, Georgia wins, you buy me a t-shirt, and then
I was thinking, I'm not going to lie, back in my mind, I'm thinking I'm driving down the road in Indy. There's a big game going on. Are there random guys selling counterfeit shirts on the highway or the roads? I'm going to say yes. If I come across one of those guys, we will be wearing those shirts next time around. It's not likely, but I might. And that's what makes Indianapolis a beautiful city.
If Alabama wins, there's no chance.
No, I second that. Go Bulldogs. Yeah. Art, Yeah. Okay. Content.
You didn't.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll end it there, right? Send us out. My mic's cutting out over here.
All right, guys. It was another fun episode. We will see you next Monday.
That's right, guys. Stay well, stay healthy, and we'll catch you right back here on the NAI Lax Updates pod.